Hey punks, welcome back to the University of Radlands. Another Cult of Chrome preview coming your way, number 10. And as always, I will link Daniel's Board Game Geek post in the description so you can read about the card from him as well. So today's preview is a pretty fun, exciting one. One of the cards that Daniel has dubbed a finisher. Let's see why. This is called Battering Ram. It gives you 0 starting cards at the beginning of the game. I think this might be the first one that he's previewed that does 0. I believe even Death Ray had 1. But for 3 water, you can destroy any camp if you have 6 people. And take a look at this art. I love it. You've got the ram here on this souped up, put together whip of a car. You've got your, looks to be maybe a cult leader up here rallying the troops, and your 6 people pushing it along into the other person's camp. Love it. So let's see what cards that we have in the game that probably work well with this, trying to get to 6 people or taking advantage of playing people. So for camps, had a few that I found that I thought worked really well or synergized really well. The first 2 kind of very similar or go hand in hand, Nest of Spies and Transplant Lab. With Battering Ram, part of the intent of your game plan is putting people onto the board, and you're most likely doing that, at least maybe 2 people a turn, or trying to play 2 people a turn. And Nest of Spies and Transplant Lab both take advantage of that. When you put 2 or more people into play, you get a 1 water damage or a 1 water restore. The other nice thing about these 2 camps is you get a little bit of cards at the beginning of the game, especially Transplant Lab, to kind of offset the 0 that you're getting from Battering Ram. And then another one that I don't think works quite as well as these 2, but still probably get the job done for you, is Oasis. Of course, Oasis, when you have no people in the column in front of Oasis, the first person you play there will cost 1 less. So just kind of a way, again, your game plan maybe with Battering Ram is getting people onto the field, onto the board. Oasis makes that a little bit cheaper, saving you hopefully some water in the long run, and maybe towards the end of the game, if that column is clear, you can put down some people in Oasis for really cheap, so you can pay for Battering Ram, which is 3 costs. Let's see what other cards we have in the Punk draw deck that might synergize well. Maybe the top one that most people are probably thinking of is Uprising. It's an event, starts in the 2 spots, so in 2 turns, you're going to get 3 people on your side of the board. So if you're already at 2 or 3 when this resolves, you're at the 6 or really darn close to 6 and can hopefully activate Battering Ram. Vanguard, another great card. He comes in with a punk whenever he is played. So you get 2 people for the price of 1. Rabble Rouser, maybe not quite as synergistic as these 2, but when he's on the field for 1 water, you can start generating punks and maybe building your side up a little bit every turn, and then you can take advantage of those punks with really cheap damage. And then the last one that I thought would be ideal to have out would be Muse. She's giving you water every turn. That helps pay for Battering Ram, that helps pay for more people to be able to play on your side, and hopefully keep up with the game plan of trying to play and get to 6 people to activate Battering Ram. And to help this along, you're probably going to want a few of the named people in the game, as when you jump them, you get a punk. So you're most likely going to save these and wait for something like a Vanguard to come into play or an Uprising to resolve, to give you a bunch of people on your side, and then you surprise your opponent by junking 1 or 2, heck, maybe even 3 of these folks to bring you up to that full 6. And since this doesn't cost any water, it's just junking to get punks, hopefully you have enough water to fulfill the requirement to pay for battering ram. And then similar to Vanguard, Argo Yeski, if you do decide to play him, he comes with a punk as well. So you're getting 2 people onto the board. Now this is pretty intimidating. I mean, as an opponent, what are some things that you're going to hope for and potentially look for in the deck to stop this? So it's mostly events. You're going to be playing people to do injures and damages, but things like napalm when this resolves, taking out a whole column, strafe, hitting all their unprotected enemies. So maybe hopefully a few of those are punks or already damaged. That way you can fully destroy them. Radiation is pretty good. Again, it's injuring all people. And maybe the best one to kind of stop a battering ram, especially if they're already at like 4 or 5 people on their side, is going to be famine, because that destroys all the people, not just injures them. They only get to keep 1 person on their side, and the battering ram player is essentially starting over. And if you're really desperate and maybe about to win the game, and they're about to win the game, you could pull a truce. Truce is pretty risky here, as all those cards are going to go back into their hand. So you're putting a lot of firepower, potential game-winning junks back into the hand of your opponent. So truce is one that'll get the job done, but is probably best used if it's going to help you win the game. So Battering Ram, this was a fun one to play test. If I recall, I think a lot of the play testers kind of liked trying to achieve this goal. Again, it kind of changes the way maybe you play Radlands, or harkens back to a simpler Radlands times where you're wanting to play a bunch of people to the board, even though that's maybe not always the best route to take with Radlands with this game. But you need to do that for Battering Ram. And I remember when Daniel and I started playtesting after that initial playtesting ended, we'd gotten a few rounds in of playing with the camps that had been narrowed down to potentially be the camps in the game. Just needed a bit more playtesting to them. And early on, at the beginning of one of the calls that Daniel and I were on, he said something to the effect of, Roxley doesn't like one of the camps, or is afraid one of the camps might be too strong. There we go. That's the phrasing. Probably too strong for the game. And I was thinking in my head, well, we've played all these camps a lot and for a few months, and I couldn't think of anything. And he mentioned that they were worried about Battering Ram. So they're towards the beginning of the initial play testing that Daniel and I continued to do. We did play quite a few games there towards the beginning where we were each using Battering Ram and trying to see if it did seem too overpowered or oppressive. And we found not really. This is kind of hard to achieve. And if you think about it, when you get a juggernaut out, it is 3 waters. Now it's 3 waters over 3 turns to activate and destroy an opponent's camp completely. So kind of same idea. 3 water, you get to destroy an opponent's camp. And I think playing 6 people is probably a little more difficult to achieve than just moving Juggernaut up 3 spaces, unless your opponent gets a lot of early damage firepower. So we put Roxley's worries at ease. Battering Ram is in the game, and it's like Daniel mentioned, it's kind of a finisher. And if your opponent's going to let you keep 6 people for multiple turns, well, then you're able to use this for multiple turns. So punks, what do you think? Do you kind of like the finishers that we have, that Daniel has shown off? Are you kind of excited to have maybe a Battering Ram versus a Death Ray to see who can get their ultimate card to go off and destroy the opponent? Let me know what you think. Comment down below. Let's talk about it. Stay thirsty, punks.